What is up, everybody? My name is Daniel Karan, founder of BoldWolves.com, and today I have a special great man breakdown. We're going to be going deep into the life of JFK, John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Specifically, we're going to be going through the lessons, the mindsets that I kind of divulged, I digged up after reading Reckless Youth by Nigel Hamilton. It's this massive biography on JFK's life. And these lessons are going to come from his particular life from when he was kind of born, a little bit after that, to right before he got elected into Congress. So the book ends as soon as he gets elected into Congress. So we're not going to talk about his presidency or his death or anything like that. This is pretty much the younger years, the reckless youth, right? Wow, so many lessons to go over. I think we have around 19 or 20 lessons for you, to just 20 lessons that are just going to be incredible for you to really kind of ingrain in your own life that we could learn from this great man. All right, so lesson number one is, we'll start this breakdown with two quotes from his peers. There's a lot of quotes in this entire book about JFK, and one of them was, the outstanding thing about Jack in school was his ability to win the friendship and admiration of everyone. He went at his work and play alike, energetically and enthusiastically. He was kind, friendly, and had incredible wit. The second quote was, he was quite popular among our peers and had a certain amount of persuasive power among them. People were always eager and willing to enlist and help him. Okay, so let's bring this forward with a little bit of a magnifying glass. How is your life right now? Do you have this persuasive power? Do you have any persuasive power? Do people look up to you and follow you? Are you a role model? Being a role model starts with joining and just kind of going on the path of self-mastery, understanding human dynamics. What are your beliefs when it comes down to other people? Do you see them in their best light, and that people are kind, friendly, that the world is a good place? Are you curious about people? But balancing all of this curiosity and expecting the best out of people with some humor, with some honesty and some humor. Are you likable right now? Whoever's listening, you listening to this audio right now on YouTube, maybe you're on your phone right now, maybe you're just looking at the picture on the screen. Are you likable? Do people like you? Do people enjoy talking to you? Do people leave your conversation being like, wow, that was a fucking magnetic dude, and I want to hang out with him some more? No matter how forward you are in skill development, the number one most important trait, according to billionaire Dale Carnegie, is social skills. Right? JFK was a master at it. He was a master at persuasion. He was a master at humor and wittiness. And he was a master at having people fall in love with him through his magnetizing aura. Right? So think back to your life and how you can increase this yourself. Lesson number two. Jack's notes after he was traveling Europe and he attended the Spanish bullfighting exhibition. And he noted that it was very interesting, but very cruel. And this is his notes. He said, especially when the bull gored the horse, he really started to believe all the stories that were kind of pervading through America about the Southerners, and how kind of the whole cultural landscape was kind of changing and their beliefs were kind of changing. And especially the French and the Spanish, and were the happiest. This is what he noted. He said, they were the happiest at scenes of cruelty. So they thought it was actually funniest when the horse ran out of the ring with its guts trailing. And of course, just a side note, a lot of this has to do with tradition. It's been going on forever, and someone that's never witnessed this type of event might not understand the underlying reason why a lot of people enjoy watching it, right? So, but as he continued to travel through Spain, through France, and started seeing kind of the mindset of the people around him, he realized that different cultures and different are there's a lot of cultures around the world. Let me make sure I say this right. That are a lot different to, for example, if you're listening to this and you live in America, a lot of cultures are not similar to America, but they're still successful organizations. They're still successful people, and they're just continuing on their own life. He realized that there's not one way to live life, right? During this trip, he actually noticed the transition Europe was making as a whole, and during his traveling, he started to create his own views, not his father's or his other peer influences. Traveling and going outside of your comfort zone, talking with people will help broaden your horizons and allow you to think critically and deeply. He made lots of notes during his travel and connected small instances like the bullfighting incident with how people were happiest when there was a fight going on with a larger picture of how he saw Europe and how he saw the global mood changing towards something kind of like a war or a type of frenzy of people that are just not happy with their status quo and they want some change, right? But the lesson that we could take from this is, first of all, the ability to develop your own views is a great way to do that and to become your own person, to become self-reliant, understand your own values and to start living by them, understanding your own principles and your rules and your boundaries, is to start traveling. When you travel, you go outside your comfort zone, you meet other people, you see other cultures, you taste different foods, you realize that the world's a lot bigger than it is in your own head. And Jack, especially after having such his dad, his dad being such a, domineering figure in his entire life, you'd think that he would just have his identical dad's views like his brother, but he ended up having not radically different, but he ended up understanding his dad's views, but detaching from them. And traveling was a major reason for him being able to do that. Lesson number 3, how to argue. He was, and this is a quote, he was very argumentative in a nice way. He questioned everything. I think the depth of his intellectual curiosity was shown in that he'd challenge anything you said, but balanced it with humor. He'd say, "Why do you feel that way? What makes you think so?" And then he'd continue a line of questioning as long as it interested him, and then having sucked the orange dry, he would go on to another piece of fruit. You got the impression that here was a mind that was learning from other people and that longed to learn from other people. Wow, what a quote. What a quote. This is such a powerful lesson. He learned from other people, and many times, this is exactly what Frank Sinatra did. This is exactly what Elon Musk does. This is exactly what, again and again, all these great men do, is he learns from the people in his environment. And many times in his environment, or maybe you could relate to this, because of the personal development and the self-improvement work that we're doing on a day-to-day basis in our own personal roads to self-mastery, we might be the most developed person in our environment. Many times he was the most intellectual, well-read person in his environment, but would he be the one talking? Being the smartest person in the room, would he be the one talking? No. He would question, listen, understand where people are coming from, and then change topics. He would suck the orange dry, and then he would go on to another piece of fruit. He would question everything, but not with malice, but with curiosity as the guiding foundation. So powerful. Lesson number 4. What made him the most charming man in the world? Multiple, and by multiple, I mean a lot of people said that they fell under his charm. Part of his charm was the very sharpness of his intellectual capabilities. Whenever he met someone new, he'd quiz them, put them right on the griddle. He knew, this is actually a quote, he'd quiz them, he'd put them right on the griddle. He knew my whole life story in 5 minutes. Wow. He knew this is someone else, one of his best friends saying, he knew my whole life story in 5 minutes. He was a master at getting investment through his natural curiosity, from lesson number 3, and not asking questions because you have to ask questions and you have to be polite. He was genuinely interested in people. The lesson to take from this is to first be interested in people, second, be well read, and know about a breadth of topics, but specifically, as an introverted man, a depth of certain topics, and then ask questions that genuinely interest you. Lesson number 5 is one time he picked up his dad from the airport, and his dad asked him to write a paper for him in order so that he could give a speech. His dad's position at this time, this was after his traveling and so forth, his dad's position was very controversial, and Jack actually disagreed with his dad. His dad didn't really know that, but he disagreed, and because he finally came to his own, when he actually finished the paper, it demonstrated that he wanted to make everyone happy. The paper, in theory, went against his dad, but tiptoed the line with his views. It's okay to grow up, and the lesson that we could take from this, lesson number 5, is it's okay to grow up and make your own views. And at an older age, he would listen to his dad, and his dad was a huge influence on his life, but it wasn't the finished product. He had a say also. And a lot of us are just, if this expert in the personal development world said it, or if this person, now they're my own beliefs. But we highly undervalue our own personal experience. So JFK, from a young age, understood his own personal experience, his own truth, his own beliefs, and, found a way to tiptoe the line so people wouldn't hate him. But even if they did, he would have chosen his own views over others. Lesson number 6, JFK's character. Character is so important, man. It's who you are and the legacy you leave. Multiple people in the book gave recommendations of his character. Quote from the book is, most boys with prominent parents get an inflated opinion of themselves. But John has never been that way. He is regular all the way through and shows definite signs of great character. I cannot recommend him too highly. This is from a very high-ranking army officer. How is your character? How do people see you? What do you stand for? What type of legacy do you want to leave once you're dead? But Jack was pretty clear on this, and character is what lasts. People could disagree with you, hate you for your ideas and what you want to create and the work that you've done, but character is that pervading thing that kind of transcends all the other minutiae in your life. Lesson number 7. Inga Binga was, out of the hundreds of women that he was with, and it was the only woman that he was actually in love with. And this is what she had to say about him. He had the charm that makes birds come out of their trees. When he walked into a room, you knew he was there. Not pushing, not domineering, but exuding animal magnetism. When you walk into a room, do people notice you? What type of presence do you have? What type of presence do you want to have? What do you want people to remember once you leave the room? Do you have any self-confidence? Do you have any magnetism and vibration? Next time you walk into any room, this is a practical tip that from now on, please start doing. Next time you walk into a room, pause, look around, take it in, and then continue walking to where you want to walk. People are going to look at you. You're going to feel the social pressure. But that's that social pressure, and bypassing it and going over it and accepting it and kind of using that as fuel allows you to be truly magnetic. Lesson number 8, loyalty. Jack was super, super fucking loyal. His endearing trait was loyalty. He was loyal to the core. Jack simply couldn't bring himself to turn on a friend or relative when he was down. And even the sight of his father being humiliated by Roosevelt pained him deeply and motivated him into actually going into politics and Congress at a later date. Are you by your friends when they're down and they're failures or anything? Do you leave them? One of the reasons he amassed such a following in the entire world, and to this day, we're making a video about him. is this trait, this loyalty. He was loyal to the people around him, and they were loyal to him. He was curious about other people, and they got just enamored by him. Are you loyal to the people that you surround yourself with? Good question to think about. Lesson number 9. He would future frame for influence. And this is pretty much something you could do right now. You don't need to become a president of a country to do. And so he would say, like, if I ever decide to run for office, you could be my manager. People love this stuff. Future planning and clarity of where you're going and placing people based on your reality is super powerful. So if, let's say, your dream is to become the next Elon Musk. So you're like, oh, when I create my car company, you could help me market it. Let's say if they're in marketing, right? And you're not lying or anything, but you're kind of combining the clarity of your vision and combining it with something that they want to achieve also. So you're making this win-win situation, and maybe that could be the case where they'll be your marketing manager. But it's just showing people that you're clear about where you're going and bringing them into your persuasive and influential environment and dreams. Lesson number 10 is, during the World War, there was an elite unit called the PT Boats, and they were, famous across America, but utterly useless in reality. These boats were like super fast, but they couldn't carry much weight, and they didn't have guns, and they would constantly break and sink, etc., etc., etc. And at the time, they were advertising that this was like the most elite, like this is like the Navy SEALs of the Army. The most elite. And they were advertising that like the smartest and the strongest people in the Ivy League schools that want to join can join, right? And you have to go through this like elite level interview process. And what happens, Jack read this, he wanted to go to the Army, and he applied. He went to Harvard, he was a Ivy Leaguer, but it was extremely difficult, and guess what happened? He got in. And his commander said that it was his transparent belief in himself, that self-confidence. It's really rare. He was far from the biggest person in the group. He was actually super skinny, super skinny and a bunch of health problems. But on the mental side, he was ready. He was ready to dominate, and he actually showed it later on, and we'll get into that. Lesson number 11 is on Jack's network of people. He associated with people no matter who they were from a background, right? And this was very unusual. He respected people. Most Ivy Leaguers would make fun of people from the South, like, oh, they talk too darn slow, especially if you went to like an Ivy League school. You went to Harvard, and there's like this Southerner from South Carolina talking to you, and a lot of them would just ignore them and just be very rude. Jack would never be rude, no matter race, ethnicity, beliefs, religion, or anything. He respected people, and he was friends with any type of person. Wow, such an important lesson. Lesson number 12. Jack's leadership. And this is just going to give a demonstration of that confidence in that he had in himself and how he was always a leader, right? So some officers were playing a game on base of touch football, and Jack asked to join. A lot of the people that were playing football at the time, when interviewed later, said that he looked like he was like 17, 18, this scrawny looking kid. He had an H on his shirt, and one of the guys that got interviewed said like, oh, I thought it was the nearby high school that was started with an H and they had the same logo. It was actually Harvard, but he's like, oh, this dude is for sure a high schooler. A few plays into the game, Jack's playing, he stops the play. They're like, what the fuck? Like this random person stops the play, and he says that the other team isn't playing by the rules. So everyone at first is in shock because they're like, this dude, this high schooler, just came into the game and is already complaining. But then he ended up convincing everyone and changing the rule and continuing the play. Within minutes, he was in the huddle and he seemed to be running the team. So not only not only did he just join the team, everyone was like, what the hell? He changed the rule and ended up running the team within minutes. That's a certain type of leadership that you can, I wouldn't say you can't teach, but it just involves that self-confidence and taking charge. And Jack had it from a young age. And we can have it too. It's kind of going out of your comfort zone, believing in yourself and believing in yourself based on past experience, not just because, like, that based on the combination, I'd say it like this, the combination of I can be a leader in every situation based on my past experiences, and that I could kind of go into a sense of entitlement based on that, plus the sense that, you're like in a spiritual, and don't take this the woo way, but like you're this perfect human being, and just trust that everything will work out for your benefit, right? The golden belief that we talk here at Bold Wolves again and again and again. So, lesson number 13 is JFKism. A trait of his that we could adapt to our own lives is could be very critical of something, say an issue, but he wouldn't make it into a personal conflict. Such a wonderful talent. If someone has a different belief structure than you and a different perspective than you, and you could be very critical of it, but you wouldn't make it personal. Won't make it personal, even though, like, a Democrat and a Republican in this, let's use the politics example, this ability allowed him to become president of of America, because he was able to see both sides, be critical of a position, however, not make it personal, and people would still like him after he was done. Wow. Lesson number 14 is competitive. He was super competitive. He loved to win, played sports all the time, and he would play to win, but he wasn't obnoxious over it. Again, we could see this with Andre Agassi. We could see this with Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart, Elon Musk, and all these people. He wanted to win. He played to win. He wanted to win, but he wasn't obnoxious about it. Everyone has this trait. All these successful people want to win and are competitive with other people, but they're not sore losers. Lesson number 15 is, I'll start it with a quote, and the quote is, it was written all over the sky that he was just going to be something big. He had that charisma. You could just tell by his nature, by the way that people would just stop by and visit him. So, a lot of random people, when he was like on army base, for example, would go base to visit him and just talk to him, and not as in like to get advice, but just talk to him and be around his presence. And so how do we do that, right? So first of all, we have to have that belief in ourselves that we're born and made for something great. And Jack had it. And the people that didn't, or the people that were just like so impressed by that belief, were affected by it. He became a role model for people because he just had this self-belief. He didn't have to tell people that he believed in himself. You could just tell by the way he talked, with the certainty of his voice, with the certainty of his actions, with the certainty of his words that he used, that he would be great, that he would be something big. So do you believe in yourself? What can you do to increase this self-belief in yourself so that you could better influence and inspire other people around you to reach higher levels, right? So lesson number 16 is he had an incredible ability to simplify a complex problem without being unfair to either side or minimizing the obstacles to resolution. And this is similar to a previous lesson. I think it was lesson number 13 about being critical but not making it personal. So he would simplify a complex problem and without being able to make it unfair to either side and minimizing the obstacles to resolution. So he was extremely talented, and through all his conversing and through his built-up social skills and through his intellect and his constant reading, he understood how to make complex problems into simple ones and minimize all the obstacles in the way. That's great leadership. That's what being a great leader is. That is incredible. Lesson number 17. So women on JFK, he had this remarkable animal pull. Again and again they kept saying this. The impact on me was overwhelming. That's a quote. He was an odd mixture of serious scholar and fun-loving, girl-crazed fool. That mixture of just like masculine energy, penetrating, getting shit done, learning, being serious about your goals, but mixing it with that femininity of being free flowing, having fun, chasing women, enjoying relationships, and everything is just a perfect blend. And you have to have, if you're more in your feminine, you need to balance it with some more masculinity. If you're all in your masculine energy, you have to have some times where you could just be a little bit more free flowing, not schedule everything as much, etc., etc. Lesson number 18, it was that he was a constant learner. He read every single word in every single book on American presidents. Let that just sink in for a moment. He read every book and every word on American presidents. Okay, so if you want to become something, let's say a really good tennis player, don't you think it'll be good to read every single word and practice every single thing of every single great tennis player that's been before you, right? Jack did. And when he read everything and he dreamed big and he realized what he wanted, he achieved it. He actually ended up becoming the president of the United States of America. Wow. So lesson number 19, and this is like the ultimate story. They were going on these daily PT missions in the middle of the Japanese islands, and they were cruising slowly, 6 miles an hour. It was like pitch black. You can't see your hand in front of you pretty much. And they couldn't turn on light because then they could get spotted by these Japanese ships. And they ended up hitting an enemy ship head on. And it was pitch black, so they all jumped into the water. The Japanese were shooting at them. They had life jackets. He ended up commanding everyone and everything and showing incredible leadership. And whether you like him or hate him, this story is just what really kind of rose him to fame. Is he started dragging other people that couldn't swim as much as he did, or someone with an injury, and they finally found an island. So after hours of swimming, he brought his whole crew. No one died. Some pretty serious injuries, but everyone back to this island. And every single night, for more than a week, every single night, they stay on this island surviving off of coconuts. And it was like 100-foot wide island. They would survive off coconuts, and he would swim out as far as he could every single night looking for PT boats. Screaming in the middle of the ocean after swimming an hour in the middle, pitch black, in the Japanese ocean, in the Japanese sea, looking for other boats that he could tell and call to in order to save his men for a week straight. Just imagine it's like 10 p.m., it's pitch black, you're freezing cold Pacific water, and just going out as far as you can with a flashlight or anything and looking for help to save your men again and again and again. I'm not even talking about sharks or like dangerous or like being caught by a Japanese or anything, but like, damn, dude, like every night trying to save your men, that's just incredible leadership. So 6 days actually they were out at sea. Finally some natives saw them, yada yada yada. He had them convinced. They went to this British base. The British people came and saved them, and everyone got rescued, him and all his men. What a story. And this brings me to lesson number 20 is, what does he do next? He rests a little, starts a new boat, and the crazy thing is that almost all of his men from this PT boat 109, that was the boat that got sunk, and he saved and rescued all his men, they followed up to his new boat. All his men, when they realized that he got reassigned to a new boat, went to that base where he was at after he finished with the hospital or whatever, and they followed up, and they're like, how could you not tell us that you started a new boat? And all of them joined his boat, pretty much every single person. That's leadership, where you inspire and your men like you, or your women, or wherever you work, that you're a role model and you're such an inspiration to other people that wherever you go, people want to follow you, help you, and be around you because of the leadership quality that you showed in the most toughest time in your life. This is the moment where he grew up. Lesson number 19, when he was on this island 6 days in a row, surviving off coconuts, this is when he grew up. This is the moment that changed him and made him into the Jack Kennedy that we remember today. So what can we take from this? This is the last lesson, and the thing we could take for this is, what's your moment? What moment in your life have you had that you maybe suffered a lot, that you were put through trials or tribulations, that you were successful in? Think back to your past successes, your failures, and how all of the years and all of these moments in your entire life have made you into the man you are today. You've experienced certain things that no one in the rest of the entire universe could experience the same way that you did. How do you view your past failures and successes? Do you view them with negativity? Do you hold them with a sense of resentment? Or do you forgive yourself? Do you accept yourself? Do you appreciate yourself? Do you love yourself? Do you realize that those moments of suffering have made you into the person that you are today? That have allowed you to develop this incredible sense of character, that have allowed you this opportunity to be a role model for other people. So what's your moment? That's the lesson that I took from it, and hopefully that you could kind of think back to your life and take from it as well. So in conclusion, Jack F. Kennedy, JFK, was late for meals, careless in dress, unable to apply himself to any one task, almost expelled from school. He was in gang leadership in school, continually sick with undiagnosed blood disorders and back pains. And several times, like more than 4 or 5 times, he was at death's door or being hospitalized for months on end. Months. Unable to cope at Princeton, dismissed as a playboy at Harvard, but with all this being said, was on the point of becoming what everyone in their hearts knew he would become, yet somehow never imagined him becoming at such a young age. A runaway success. So if you enjoyed this great man breakdown, subscribe to this channel and join hundreds of introverted men learning and dominating at world-class levels with peak performance at www.boldwolves.com. See you inside there, champ. Thank you for listening to this incredible JFK breakdown. I'll put some links in the description where you could buy this book if you're interested, and maybe we'll make another JFK breakdown in his later years at a future date. Enjoy.